little chickies. I got some more treats for you guys. Girl.
When a big winter storm's just about to hit, brings a lot of cold weather and wind and snow, a lot of chicken owners actually get very worried, and sometimes, honestly, I do too. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what I do to protect my chickens, what I do to prep the coop before this bad weather hits, so my chickens stay warm, dry, and healthy. The biggest issue in winter is actually not the cold. It's drafts and moisture that can build up inside the coop. Chickens actually handle cold weather extremely well. What causes problems is cold air directly blowing on them when they're roosting. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you look around your coop. And if you notice, all these manufactured coops do have a lot of gaps and stuff like that, but that actually works as ventilation. So it's not the worst as long as it's up high. It's not where they roost. Chickens can handle the cold just fine, but when the wind is cold and it's blowing right on them while they're sleeping, it like literally slowly pulls the heat out of their bodies all night. So the constant chill will stress them out and it will lead to some breathing issues, and that's what you don't want. You got to have ventilation in the coop though, so don't get scared and seal up the whole coop so it's airtight, because that's actually very dangerous because of moisture. So just take a couple precautions. What I did was I put up some plastic, and it just basically a piece of plastic went across the whole thing and sealed all the gaps around the windows. And the chickens are happy; they're completely fine. So just do little things like that, and everything will work out well. So the next topic is bedding, and that's very important because it's a huge source of warmth for your chickens. I don't like to use alternative heat, so what I do is it's called a deep litter method. Let me explain. So a lot of backyard chicken owners actually use this deep litter method, and it basically just means you don't clean everything out every week. Instead, you keep adding fresh, dry bedding on top as it gets used. When the chickens are roosting, that's the time that they process their food and digest their food. So that's when they do most of their droppings. So you have the older bedding and the manure slowly break down underneath the new bedding. And as long as everything stays dry, you don't have leaks in your roof, the process helps create a lot of warmth in your coop and actually keeps the coop pretty healthy. It's the mixture between the carbons and the nitrogen coming together, breaking down, causing that heat, and that's composting. And you should not get that really bad smell in your coop because of its composting. That means it's breaking down and it prevents that really horrible ammonia smell. Hey, let's face it, you also get some awesome compost for the garden. All right, the inspector's here. Dottie Mae, she's making sure we did a good job. She's very thorough at her inspection. And above her shoulder, we got Dip. She's a little dippy, that's her name, but she's an underboss. But anyway, if you look behind her, you see all the gaps in the doors. We're going to address that in a minute. But right now, I want to go ahead and scrape off these roost bars because that's important to keep them clean. Because number one, their poop basically freezes, and you want it nice and flat. You want them to sit on the wood. And when they're sitting on old poop, it's very unhealthy. It's not good for them. Um, and at the same time, it's cold, and they're standing on piles of poo, which is not good. But a good idea too is also when you get a chance to take a look at their droppings, because you could kind of see the health of your flock by just looking at their droppings and making sure there's no bugs and just everything looks healthy. So that's one big thing I always check before, especially a big storm comes. But this is something you should do normally. The nesting boxes is another opportunity for a lot of drafts that you don't want to get into your coop. So what I do is I added some fresh cut straw, and what that does, the hens go in there when they go to lay. They basically just kind of like push all the straw around up against the doors, so it blocks a lot of that wind that they don't want while they're laying. And it's just another added protection, and it really keeps them comfortable. And that's how I keep getting eggs throughout the winter time, even through the cold months. Something I would definitely suggest making sure that you do, especially before big storms. So how you feed your chickens actually really matters. In the morning, I focus on like a high protein diet, protein keeps their bodies very strong, supports their feathers, helps them from going through the winter without a heavy molt. And actually, it really keeps their levels of stress down. So that's why I give them a nice scrambled eggs. I prepare it with some oregano, pepper flakes. I put parsley in there, and they really, really love it. And it's a simple addition that really makes their body strong, and they high protein because that's why I get a lot of eggs. I also keep their feeders pretty full, so very high protein layer feed. I always get the mashed version, and I mix it up with some other things, and that's what they really like. So I put those usually in the run. I put sometimes out in the yard, and they just snack all day long. Overall, though, the protein keeps them very, very healthy. So later in the day, before they go to roost for the night, I kind of switch gears up with their food. In the evening, I give them some scratch grain. What I'll do is I'll pour it in a bucket, and I'll also pour in some cracked corn. And what I do this for, it's not actually for their nutrition, but it's for actual heat, because chickens don't have teeth. A lot of people don't really always think of that, but they really don't have they don't have teeth. So they digest their food using their gizzards. And in their gizzards are those really strong muscles, and what they do is they massage the food and grind it down with grit. Grit is something they naturally will find on the ground. It could be sand, it could be little tiny pieces of stone. You could actually buy at your local store some grit, maybe because the ground would be frozen in the winter. So that's basically how they create a nice warmth in their body. So at night when they roost, their food is digesting and everything's working. The muscles are activated, and it's really keeping them warm. Plus, they're like, you think about it, they're wearing like a jacket, like a down jacket, because they have all those feathers. And between the two of them, that really, really would keep them warm. So that's the purpose of feeding them the scratch grain mix with the cracked corn. So you don't, like, later in the day, it's because you don't want to have to put a heater in their coop, because that doesn't really do them any good to survive. What happens if the power goes out? So you're basically letting the chickens heat themselves from the inside out by giving them that fuel. So when you're intentional about feeding them like this, your chickens do a really good job just literally regulating their own body heat during those cold nights. I just love watching these chickens eat. But anyway, long story short, just to wrap this part up, is protein in the morning keeps them strong. Scratch grains, crack corn at night will fuel their digestion, and that creates the warmth while they roost. And that will set your mind at ease. Earlier, we took care of some of the drafts, and it looks like the girls have been busy. That means they're happy because the wind is being blocked from being in their nesting boxes. So that's the key thing. I'm actually going to add a little bit more of the chopped straw because they keep knocking it out. But anyway, into the run itself, the whole idea with a run is to keep it really dry. You don't exactly want to trap the heat, but you want to block the wind while the sunlight is out. And when you block the wind, especially at the ground level, on mostly all the sides where it gets hit the hardest, that will keep the upper areas very comfortable where they like to hang out during the day. But believe me, when the sun's out, it makes a huge difference. It's very noticeable. On this side of the run where it doesn't really get hit hard with the wind, I actually kept the top of the door open. So that's for good circulation, because they kind of, in this area, they hang out in the bottom, but the top's open, and that kind of keeps the breeze coming in without the heavy, heavy winds. But if you notice, I have a tarp over the top. The coop is looking nice and tight, and I have corrugated clear roofing on the sides, and man, that works excellent. Especially, it's almost like a greenhouse effect in a way, because when the sun's out, it really keeps it super warm, and I'm so impressed how warm it keeps it. The rafters on the top are open, so that's another area where it will allow some circulation to come in. But all the way around. I have it covered. You know, I have that tarp on the back side, just so, you know, because you get a lot of rain from the trees dripping down, and I don't want the coop floor to get wet because that's the enemy for your chicken run. But yeah, I just use a nice heavy duty tarp. I use some poly string to tie it down, or paracord. But this whole area is open, and what that does, that allows a lot of air movement along with the door itself and the circulation. So believe it or not, when the sun's out, it is super warm, even with all these areas that are open. But you want to keep these areas open for the health of your chickens, because otherwise they could form some respiratory issues. And always keep your water fresh, your food fresh, keep it full. Um, you know, and that will just really keep them very happy, you know, especially on days they might be stuck inside the coop itself. And if you notice, these are actually heated waterers, and I ran an extension cord out to both of them. And here's another way I like to keep them busy. I just take cabbage and I actually shoot a screw with a washer, and I hang it from the roof, the ceiling, and it's the same thing with kale. And both of them are excellent source of nutrition for them, especially the kale for their eggs and everything. And that really just kind of keeps them busy. Dry bedding, dry feathers, no drafts. Basically, that is how you're going to keep your chickens really healthy. If you notice, I put a lot of hay built up into these corners, or excuse me, straw. Same thing over there. Oops, I just stepped on their corn dish. And right over there. And the girls like to go in there and play and have fun. But anyway, the reason why I'm showing you this is I built up the corners, and I'm in here right now. It's actually pretty warm, and it just kind of builds up like some kind of almost like a warmth inside here, right? Right, Chok? So if you see the sun coming in here, it's actually really warm, and there's no wind in here. And the only spot I have open is this spot right here. And this is going to keep them healthy, keep them from having any respiratory issues. They're going to be able to roost in the middle of a big bad windstorm. So they're protected in all four corners. Like I said, I have ventilation here, which is important. It's going to be some of a cold air coming in, but it's going to keep them from getting, you know, it's not good to have it sealed up. It's just moisture builds up, and then that's where you get mold and everything. But all this straw, nice and dry, very dry. So yeah, we're looking really good. This is how you protect your chickens during the winter time. And I had an excellent time making this video for you, and I hope you find it very helpful. This really works well for my flock, and so far they've been protected from heavy storms, lots of wind and snow. So if you're coming up to a cold snap, take some of these precautions. They really do help. And if you find this useful, share it to some of your friends that have chickens, and leave some comments down below. Some of the things that you've done to prepare for big, heavy winter storms, and how to keep your flock safe. All right, I'll see you on the next one.